In this video, we discuss topics that include sexual abuse, suicidal ideation, and self-harm. These subjects may be distressing or triggering for some viewers. Please take care of your mental and emotional well-being while watching. If you or someone you know is struggling, we encourage you to reach out for help. Resources and support services are listed in the description below.
Welcome to the Futurist Foster Podcast, powered by Raise a Child. I'm your host, Nancy Mogy. I was adopted at 17, and I'm ready to talk all things foster and adoption. Someone has to.
As a kid, my life was filled with anxiety and pain and fear and abuse. I didn't like being alive. Every day was survival for me, and frankly, I was ready to die because I was in so much pain for so many years. The older I got, there's more pain, there's more fear. And I'll never forget that moment. Something had clicked that it was okay to feel those things. That I wasn't crazy for, feeling so much pain and sadness, that I wasn't alone. And I'm basically telling this lady, I don't give a I am not going back to the house. You cannot do anything. And I didn't realize it. But in that moment where I had felt so low, I finally found my voice. And as soon as I felt that I had found my voice, I wasn't going to let anyone take it from me. But I had found my new passion. This. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Futurist Foster Podcast. I'm your host, Nancy Mogy. Thank you so much for joining us on our season finale. This week, we are joined by no one. It's just me, my personal story, how I found my voice, and how I intend to use it. And this is an episode that I've known is really important because people have been telling me to do it since I've started, this podcast. And I've shared my story a bunch of times on the news, on TV, in front of crowds. Today, I want to go all the way deep down to my subconscious, to my childhood, and really just share with you all what made me feel it was important to create a podcast that shares so many different voices and so many different life paths. I believe one person's life story can be another person's roadmap, and maybe someone can be helped by my story. Now, where did it all start? When I was really young, I always knew that something was different. I don't know if it was wrong or if it was right, but something was different compared to when I would go to my other friends' houses. There was a part of me that knew, even though I was a really young child, I shouldn't feel scared all the time. I knew that your parents are supposed to love you and be there for you. And I didn't know why my parents weren't like that for me. Growing up, my biological mother suffered from mental illnesses, and I do think she loved me the best way possible. The best way she was capable is a better term. And I still just wondered, why things were different. Why there would be so many different men going in and out of my house. As a kid, I always wondered what the weird noises were that would come out of the bedroom. I always wondered why I had certain family members that made me uncomfortable. I always knew something was wrong, and I didn't know if it was just me, I was the person that was wrong, or I was the one that was different, but something always felt different inside of me. I remember in my early childhood when there would be all these men coming in and out of the house in, the late hours of the night. I was okay with it because I was hoping that maybe one of them would want to be my dad, my biological father. I didn't even know his voice or anything about him besides the fact that he was from Mexico, came to America, did bad things, and they sent him back. And every time I would ask my mom if my dad loved me or would come back, she said that he loved drugs more and that he just wasn't ever going to come around. So I would try to cling on to these people that would come in and out of the house, but they weren't good people. Even when they would harm me or make me feel unsafe as a really small child, I still held on to that feeling of like, well, maybe they'll stay. Maybe this will be someone in my life who doesn't leave. As I got older and I started to go to my friends' houses, I really started to notice things were different. I would go to a friend's house and they would have dinner. They would have food in the fridge. They would have things, there for them. But when I would go home, there'd be days I wasn't allowed to eat because it would be a punishment, because I would speak up or I wouldn't be nice to one of the men in the house, that, food was used as kind of like a punishment. It wasn't a necessity. One of the hardest parts of my childhood was not feeling like I ever had a voice. There were times I felt unsafe and that I wanted to speak up about it, but I didn't know how. I had family members in my home who would, visit or live with us that took advantage of me as a very small child. I remember being 5 years old and wondering, why is my uncle touching me in a place that I don't feel comfortable? And when I tell him to stop, he doesn't stop, or he tells me it's okay because he's my uncle. Or if I would say I don't want to do that, I would still have to. As I got older, I started to speak up. I started to, speak up to my mom. And, she didn't like that. There was a lot of abuse, physically, emotionally. And that turned into me then not wanting to speak up, not having a voice. And I remember, I would go to school and I would see kids on the playground and they would all be happy, playing, laughing, chasing each other. And I would wonder, why can't I be happy? Why can't I be as happy as them? I didn't know why. I just knew there was something, that there was some kind of disconnect or something was wrong. And I always knew, even at a young age, that me thinking of death so often was not normal either. As a kid, my life was filled with anxiety and pain and fear and abuse. I didn't like being alive. I had a friend that said her grandma had passed away. And there was a part of me that was kind of jealous that she got to go to heaven and she got to live a better life. And now saying it as an adult is crazy, but I kept thinking in my head that my life would get better if I was dead, because I couldn't imagine a life without anxiety and fear and without a home where I was harmed and I wasn't safe. I still had some really great parts of my childhood. I loved theater. That was really one of my saving graces. I loved being able to go on stage and escape. I loved being able to play someone else, maybe play a character that was brave, that was strong, that wasn't scared, and it was that would be my escape. And then I would have to go back to normal life as soon as you get off the stage. I had a lot of friends that made me happy, and they would invite me over to their home and their parents would feed me. If I was sick, they would, take care of me for the week. They would never try to push or ask questions. If my mom would never show up to pick me up, they would just say, it's okay, you could keep staying over. And I knew even in that moment, I was lucky to have had such amazing friends. In my neighborhood, there was a family that lived a block away from me. I met them when I was 10, and something just clicked. I don't know if it was just because I was having so much fun with their daughter, because, they would pack an extra lunch for me because I knew I wouldn't have lunch when I would go to school, that I just always felt safe and welcome there. And I would never have to ask, hey, can I spend the night one more night? Hey, can I stay over? It would just happen. They would just allow it. They'd remember my birthday. They'd, get me a gift on the holidays instead of me having to be home alone or jumping to a different friend's house. And they made me feel really safe and really important. They would try to ask questions about my biological mom, and I'd lie to them and say, oh no, yeah, she travels a lot, she works a lot. I was a kid, I wasn't gonna be I am suffering from neglect and abuse. My biological mother caught on that I was really attached to this family, and it would be used as a punishment of I wouldn't be allowed to go over there. There was even a year that she forbid me from going over there and literally told me that they didn't like me, thought it was annoying. And, it was one of the scariest years because I had had this home that had provided safety and warmth, and then it was taken away. And then when I went into middle school, that's when I really noticed things were not normal. All the thoughts I would have of death and pain and fear, I couldn't hide them anymore. I couldn't push them away. My passion for theater and performing transformed into me being the class clown and me wanting to just make everyone laugh, because I feel like when everyone's laughing, you're not getting hurt. If I was at home and I would make one of my mom's boyfriends, laugh, or I would even make my mom laugh, it would mean that I wouldn't get hit that night, or maybe I would get dinner. And that became a really big coping mechanism for me. And middle school already sucks for everyone, but for me, I had gotten teased from these boys for wearing too much makeup, and and it had smeared on my shirt. And I was 12. I didn't know how to do my makeup. What they didn't know is the reason I was wearing makeup is because I wanted to cover bruises on my body, because I was crying in the morning and I didn't want to come to school and have people know. But I just pretended it didn't matter. But as the older I got, there's more pain. There's more fear. I started not allowing certain family members to come around, or I would leave, or, I would go to a friend's house. So I was finding ways to protect myself. But what I couldn't protect myself from was my inner wounds, my inner childhood, the stuff that would be festering, the panic attacks, the anxiety, the nightmares, the triggers. And then I was able to be reunited back with the family that had opened their home to me when I was 10. I noticed things like if I did bad on a math test, I would get punished by my bio mom. When I would do bad on a math test with this family, someone would just sit down with me and do my math homework. If I would cry, I wouldn't get yelled at with this new family. They'd ask me why I was crying. And I felt so safe there. I kept spending time with them. I was so, included with the family. It finally felt like I had a family, even though it wasn't my family. It was something I was so happy to be a part of. I reached a point really when I was 12 to 13 of I need to stick up for myself. I don't know how, but I need to. I had called the cops numerous times. But of course, when the cops would come, I'd freeze, I'd shut down. My bio mom would be able to convince them that, oh, she's just a rebellious teenager. I never brought a social worker around. I didn't even really know what a social worker was at that point. I just thought that when you feel unsafe and that something is wrong, you call the police. And I did. And they never listened. Not once. I stopped reaching out to people about it. I stopped reaching out to police about it. I stopped wanting to talk about it. I just pushed it down. And there was actually a social worker that had lived in the building of this family I had grown so close to. She had approached the family, the parents, and was like, hey, I don't know what's going on here. Something doesn't feel right. If Nancy ever needs to talk, my door is always open. I'd love to talk to her and, just get to know her. And the family was like, you should talk to her. She's a social worker. She'll help you. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to go talk to a stranger and have them laugh in my face or shoot me down or not believe me. I mean, I didn't really start thinking about my future until I got older, because every day was survival for me. And frankly, I was ready to die because I was in so much pain for so many years. And finally, I just kind of hit rock bottom, and I had expressed my thoughts of wanting to be suicidal. And I had expressed it, to this family, and they're like, you need to talk to her. If you're not going to talk to her, we will check you in somewhere. So it's either you talk to her or you talk to a doctor. And I had gone, and I just immediately broke down. And I was like, this happened. I was like, listen, my mom, sells her body for money. She lets strange men come in and out of the house. They've harmed me. She's let multiple family members, sexually abuse me, even though I had begged her to make it stop. She never believed me. I have food used as a punishment. I have been emotionally and physically abused. And so I'm just like going through all the things that had happened to me that had made me feel scared. And she made me feel so safe, and I felt so listened to. And I'll never forget that moment when I was sitting on her couch, that it was like something had clicked, that it was okay to feel those things. That I wasn't crazy for, feeling so much pain and sadness, that I wasn't alone most of all. And the next day, I was at school and she had sent a social worker to come and talk to me. The social worker showed up. She was very sweet. She was amazing. But she was like, listen, the way the foster care system works, we're not going to remove a child from the home unless there is a sign of immediate harm. So we're going to take you back to your house and we're going to assess the situation. So I was like, okay, great. I'm being listened to. I finally have my allies. I have my angels. Like, I'm so ready. We show up to my biological mother's house, and it's immediately like, of course, a completely different person. My biological mom's putting on a whole thing of, oh, everything's fine. She's just a rebellious teen. Look at her grades. I was acting out. I wasn't. And they literally were like, do you have any bruises on you? When was the last time you were hurt? And I was like, it had been like a couple months at that point. And they basically told me, okay, you're going to stay one more night. You guys are going to talk it out. Your mom's not going to do this. They already had taken me to get dinner. So you just got to go to sleep and go to school. And, you guys will work on it and proceed. Well, what they didn't know is that I didn't think it was possible to make my life any worse. That night, my biological mom, I remember, she woke me up and she was just going crazy. She was threatening to kill me. She was telling me I was going to go to hell and that I was horrible and that just picking on my body, picking on me, picking on all this stuff, saying I made stuff up. And she was like, why are you trying to lie to them? You'll never outsmart them. I'm the adult. I'm smarter. And that feeling of I finally had a voice and I finally had people that listened to me just vanished. It just diminished. It was gone. And I remember that night, I didn't sleep at all. I was just crying of why am I sharing my voice? Why am I doing this? Why am I letting this happen to me? And then when I had woke up and gone to school, I had went to my counselor's office and I literally was just like, I need to use your phone. And she was like, okay, hello, how are you? Take a seat. And I was like, I need to use your phone. And she was like, why? I was like, I need to call my social worker. And so, of course, she lets me use her phone. I call up the social worker. I'm screaming in this guidance counselor office. And I was like, I am not going back to that house. You cannot make me. I was like, I will run away. I will fight. It's hard when there's emotional abuse. You can't show it, and that's a common trend for a lot of people who suffer from trauma. And emotional abuse can be even worse because it lasts for years. And I'm basically telling this lady, I don't give a fuck. I am not going back to that house. You cannot do anything. And I didn't realize it. But in that moment where I had felt so low, I had finally found my voice. And as soon as I felt that I had found my voice, I wasn't going to let anyone take it from me.
I'm so depressed and I don't know the reason, just wanna feel better.
They tried taking me back to the house because I did have to get clothes. I don't even think I brought my backpack to school that day. I was just in survival mode. I couldn't go back with the family that had, grown to love me and taken care of me because my bio mom had claimed that they were brainwashing me to hate her and all this stuff. Spoiler alert, I had hated her before they even came around. If you don't know anything about the foster care court system, it is a shit show. You basically are told one thing and then you gotta wait a couple months and it's a whole back and forth process. And I thankfully, one of my really good friends, Ellie, and her mom, Alyssa, her mom was a teacher, so she was already verified and had gone through background checks, and I was able to stay for them for a bit. But I knew I wanted to go back to that family that was there. And they had known of everything that was going on because I made sure the social worker was telling them, and the social worker in our building was keeping them updated. And specifically, we had done a facilitation meeting because I get it. The foster care system is meant to reunify the parents and the kids. And in a lot of ways, that's great. You do want to give a parent a second chance to get their life together, to get their kid back. The problem is my mom wasn't trying to get her kid back. She was trying to get her toy back. She was trying to get something back that hurt her. I was able to be placed with the family, and I was so happy to be with them, but it felt different than how it did before, because every day I felt, every waking second, I would feel like I would get a call from a social worker or a cop would show up on the door and be like, you have to go back home, and that this would all go back. I still had that fear that I would have to fight, because my whole life, my whole childhood, I was fighting.
I just hope I feel better.
Fast forward to my 8th grade graduation, and I was so excited. I was like, I'm reclaiming my life back. And they had told my bio mom that when she was given permission to come to my graduation was that I wasn't allowed to know. She wasn't allowed to make a scene. She wasn't allowed to talk to me or make any kind of contact with me or the foster family. Well, I don't know if the judge wasn't reading the social work paperwork and didn't realize that they were dealing with a woman who literally had no social boundaries. And it basically turned out that my bio mom showed up. She was threatening to shoot up the place and cause a fight with the high school police and yelling at other parents, yelling at just anyone and everyone. And it was so bad that the police literally were like, hey, come here. You being here is putting other students at risk. You need to leave because this woman she's getting detained and we're going to arrest her. But if she comes back or sends someone else, it's not going to be safe. So it's you are not allowed to be here. And I was just completely distraught, completely heartbroken. She ruined my childhood. Now she's ruining my graduation. Now the entire school knows that my bio mom's a whack job and wants to kill me. So that felt great. And then a couple months of going to court. Basically, you sit in the courtroom and no one talks to you. The judge just picks up a big paperwork pamphlet, reads through a couple lines, and then makes an assumption about your entire life and makes a decision that can completely change it. And nothing happened the first few court dates. And then there was one where the judge specifically said, okay, we're gonna do some mandated therapy sessions. Let's see if we can get them in the same room together with a therapist to keep them safe. And that was a dumb idea, frankly, because when I did do the therapy session, my mom tried to kill me again. And at least this time there was witnesses, and she was screaming. She was gonna put hands on the therapist. The security guard had to come in and take her out, and it was the worst experience ever. And at that point, I really realized, okay, now I'm done. I tried to be polite. I tried to use my voice, but also know not when to speak up. And I had this family I was getting close to, and it was I knew that I did not belong in the home of this woman. And I knew that there was no way for her to change because not everyone's capable of changing. Not everyone's capable of being empathetic or being a mother. I'm still having night terrors. I'm still having anxiety. I'm so happy and I'm with a great family, but I still couldn't get away those thoughts of death and self-harm and fear and anxiety. A couple years had gone by of basically court dates and back and forth and everything. And I, again, had a breakthrough one morning. And I remember I literally was just in a mood. I was pissed. I was I don't want to be at this court date. I'm, missing school. I'm missing all this stuff. I was done. I was beyond it.
And I didn't want to feel this way.
We were in the courtroom and I remember just something came up and I just stood up and I said to the judge, hey, we need to talk. And my lawyer is looking at me. My foster parents are looking at me what are you doing?
I can sit and cry about reasons why I'm in this mess.
Foster kids are not allowed to talk. Despite the whole court proceeding being for them, we're not allowed to talk. And I immediately was no. I was I need to talk to you, and my lawyer was please, talk to her, listen to her. I had gotten really close with my lawyer, Cynthia. She's amazing.
I'm not myself.
It was very clear that I realized for multiple court dates that the judge thought I was just like some rebellious, troubled teenager. My mom's lawyer had brought up I had tweeted some rap lyrics. I was 12 listening to Kendrick Lamar, sorry. And so they were painting that I was just this runaway teen and that I had just found this family and I just, wanted nothing to do with her.
But I didn't want to feel this way. Tired of being out of place.
I was tired of it. I knew that wasn't me. I knew that wasn't a stereotype. It just shouldn't have existed for anyone. And I literally remember just not taking no for an answer. I was like, nope, we need to talk. Thankfully, the judge let me go into her chambers and it was me, her, and my lawyer. And I just broke down and from the back. Basically told this judge, I was like, you have not believed me. You have not listened to me. It's obvious you're not reading what the social workers are saying because then you would know certain things. You've stereotyped me and you've put me in a box and you've made me just scared every single day.
I feel so low.
I went off and I told her everything and I even threatened to run away again. And the judge and I, both crying at this point, she was like, listen, I'm so sorry. I've seen a bunch of different kind of cases. I know mothers and teenage daughters can have issues. Okay, but I have been having these issues since I was a child. It's not just because I'm a teenager. And something clicked in her eyes because she was like, I'm sorry.
I'm not myself.
We had some more court dates. My biological mother's parental rights were terminated. They deemed her unfit to be a parent, and they said I never would have to speak to her again. I could apply for a restraining order if I wanted to or do anything, but that I was done and that I didn't have to deal with her anymore. And so you would think, okay, great, you're going to go get adopted. Nope. Then we had a few more years of court dates still before getting adopted, which I just think there needs to be reform for, because as soon as parental rights are terminated and you have a family that has gone through a background check and cleared and been with a kid for multiple years, proven successful, why are you making all these social workers, multiple social workers, because I see 3 a month, go run through hoops and stuff when they could be doing that for other kids? And that's when I started to really realize there has to be some kind of reform in the system. And I started to find my voice more. I started getting better grades in school. I finally had a family. I had cousins. I had a sister. I finally felt like I had my whole life ahead of me. And for once in my life, I was looking towards the future. When I was 17, I was legally adopted by this family. It was an amazing day. I think we're all just excited we didn't have to go to court anymore. But it finally had felt like as I was graduating high school and going into this next chapter of my life, something had clicked in me that it wasn't just going to be okay. It was going to be great if I make it to be, and I want it to be. Nights would go by where I wouldn't have nightmares. Days would go by where I wouldn't have anxiety. And every day still is a learning process, and I'm growing from it, and I'm pushing through. And I think my senior year of high school is when really everything kind of clicked together. And I knew that finding my voice, no one was ever going to take it away. And I wasn't going to let anyone around me ever feel like they didn't have a voice and that they couldn't share it. My whole childhood, I had felt like I had the words in my head of what I wanted to say. I had the feelings, but the words would just get stuck in my throat of I couldn't say it. I couldn't share it. I was too scared. I didn't want to be judged, or I was fearful. I didn't want to be hit. And my goal is to make sure people don't have that, or, they grow from it. And, there's that. There's the past. We did the hard part, guys.
Love was holding all the cards and always kept me in the dark. I never thought I could shake this heartache until I saw your light, and it's got me feeling
found my voice. I'm very excited. I love having this much power. I had found my new passion.
School's over! Class dismissed!
This.
Principal for a day. Now we're gonna send it over to Comedy Sports.
I had always had a dream of having my own talk show or podcast. People would ask me what I wanted to be when I'd be older, and I'd say Oprah. And I always knew, and I'd always say it, but I never created anything, and I never did anything. And so my senior year, there was a show we had called Good Day MOK, and it was a daily broadcasting show that went out to the entire school.
And this is a Good Day MOK.
Started off just wanting to do fun segments, but then I realized that there were so many stories within our school.
And this year we will be doing more fundraisers and drives for those in need. We need your help.
My favorite episode is we did a day with the lunch ladies.
High school is about whatever you do here is going to affect your real life.
He gives life lessons and barbecue.
And I had spoken with all the lunch ladies you see every day, and I had gone back like a week later to talk to them, and they were like, thank you for doing that video. Now the students are treating us like people. They're asking us how our days are. They're talking to us. They're getting to know us. They're not just treating us like we're just background staff, that they're also here to shape the lives of these kids too. And I was just trying to make something funny, and be a lunch lady and like make people laugh. But then I had realized that by sharing these stories, that it had changed the perspective of so many people around me and had made people feel valued and validated when they deserved to.
Attention college-bound students.
And then I went to college. I am adopted, I am triracial, I am Jewish, and I am Chapman. I started mentoring at Hoya Scholars, being an academic mentor for other at-risk youth. And then fast forward to the end of COVID, where I still felt like I had to do something to help foster youth. And I was walking and I had looked up and I saw these street lamp banners, and they were for the Raise a Child organization. And I was like, foster, adopt? I was like, wait, that's cool. And then I started doing speaking engagements for them.
I'm Nancy Mogy for Raise a Child.
I started emceeing their events and really being a part of the organization. I started speaking up for foster youth.
I definitely want to end the stigma for foster youth, adopted kid, and especially mental health within that.
Then I had another kind of turning life point last year in 2023, where I did the Running for Foster Kids fundraiser. We raised over $10,000. We ran 13 miles in Yosemite, and it was very hard. It was very, very hard, but it was the most rewarding experience ever. And then that kind of got the ball rolling of like, I had realized that I had lit kind of a match and that I had there was some spark. And then I was invited to join the Raise a Child board because I was fundraising so much. And so then I presented to them. I was like, what if we did a podcast just about the foster care system from a former foster youth, interviewing other people and their pain, their triumphs, get more people to adopt, get more former foster youth to see certain resources that exist for them, share scholarships and grants, and just really gather everyone we know into this community to just grow and promote these stories. I can't change the foster care system myself. No one person can do it, but we all can. We can change this narrative on foster youth and just adoption. And so I created the Future is Foster podcast. I emailed every recording studio from here to Santa Barbara and San Diego, and I had the amazing Mike DeLay of Real Voice LA reach back out and be like, that's a great idea. I have friends that were former foster parents. We need to spread the word. Let's do it. So
where can people find the podcast?
So we are at thefutureisfosterpodcast.com.
And I'm talking to Nancy. Her podcast is The Future is Foster.
Light it up, pedal to the metal. We're gonna take it to a whole nother level tonight.
You're right. You were doing the right thing. Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right. A whole nother level.
This podcast is only the beginning.
Hit it like we never ever hit it before.
For the longest time, I would hate teddy bears because it was just a reminder.
Especially those teddy bears.
Yeah.
Like, that's a whole other podcast episode.
Want to come meet this baby with me?
This podcast is meant to shine a light on all the different voices within the foster care system.
Hey, make yourself happy and do not care what anybody else thinks, because they're not paying your bills at the end of the day.
This podcast is a microphone for all of us to come together to just share our stories and inspire.
Do the work. You must do the work. And it's okay. You know, it's life. It's life.
Let's take it to a whole nother level.
And to show people that they should never be silenced, that they should never feel scared or hurt.
You are not alone. You have never been alone.
You know, you can't change where you start out in life, only where you go from there.
The second I met him, I'm like, I'm moving to Mexico if they want this kid back.
Show everybody what the future's about. Hey.
Hi, camera.
We're going to be here to make sure every person knows they have the opportunity to succeed and have a future, and that their voice matters.
You know, we're all humans.
On our website, thefutureisfoster.com, we have a specific tab called Resources, where we are highlighting all the amazing organizations that I've worked with or I've benefited from or our guests have been a part of. There's so many amazing resources and stories and peoples and everything. We're just the bridge connecting them all. And it is an honor to be that bridge. I hope you guys have enjoyed this season. I know I have. And it's, you know, now season finale. It's just been the most fun and the most hard, but the most fun and the most rewarding. And now I'm just like, the sky's the limit. We're just getting started. Yeah.
A whole nother level.
Thank you for making the future Foster.